All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kenny, and today, or in this moment, I'm going to be sharing experiences with you about practical penetration testing. But before we get our hands dirty, it's important to understand what is penetration testing, why penetration testing, what are the tools available, how do I start to be a penetration tester, who is a penetration tester. So the content is structured this way. The first thing will be understanding what penetration testing is, what are the tools available, what are the vulnerability that are available, as relates to web applications, and we're going to be narrowing down on a tool called Bob Suits to see penetration in practice. Now, penetration testing is not about you. It's not only about you building an application and testing the application out. It's beyond that. Penetration testing has to do with testing everything, the whole life cycle. One thing is the application that you have built. The second is where the application is living. Where you deploy the application, is it also can you also beat your chest and say that that environment is secured? So penetration testing is about testing if someone can go through a backdoor and have an unauthorized access to an asset. In which case, this asset could be a web asset, in which case we can call it a web application, or any asset at all. We want to test and see, like a CBN, for instance. They want to do a penetration test. They have votes somewhere. They have money there. They want to ensure that if they attacked, if attack comes in, they want to ensure that people don't get to that valuable asset as quickly as they will want, or at all they don't even get access to it. So CBN will not be fooling itself, putting a vote somewhere within its office. No penetration testing is conducted, and they can go to sleep. And they go to sleep and say that this thing is in our office, and no thief can access it. How can they be sure when they have not simulate an attack to see if a thief comes in? How would they attack that guy, and how quickly can they take that valuable asset? So penetration testing is about testing the vulnerabilities, access routes to a valuable asset, and ensuring that we mitigate to a very reasonable extent the vulnerability within a system. In which case, we are talking about networks, because your application is on a network. So even if your application is secured, is built with the best of developers and is secured, everything that Mr. Amin was saying is very secured. But then it's deployed on a very weak network. Then you have built nothing. So application needs to be secured, the network needs to be secured, the device that is on that network needs to be secured, and everything within that network has to be secured. And in fact, the people who are also involved in the whole chain needs to be also be security. They are also part of the assets within the security chain. So while we are doing penetration testing, we are trying to simulate an attack, and then testing how a thief or unauthorized access will get access to a particular valuable asset. So, and if we can do that, we'll try to break it. We try to block it. We try to block that access. Any vulnerability, we try to block it. Any vulnerability we can see, we try to block it. So that's the whole essence of it. Mr. Amin has taken us through the automation of the security into our development pipelines, and that is to block one side of a vulnerability in terms of checking certain things, certain practices of vulnerabilities, in terms of leaving keys inside this thing, using some very weak SQL statements, using hold duplicated assets and all of those things. All those things would be checked by Mr. Amin, Mr. Amin methodology, and they will be taken out before it even gets to production. But then when it gets to production, a lot more than that, because that guy is not going to take where he's going to live, because and in fact he's not aware of where he's going to live. So there has to be network penetration tests, there has to be devices, there has to be people penetration tests as well. So this let's get it straight. This session, including Mr. Amin's own, is not to give us everything about this whole topic. It's just to give us, lay the foundation and give us something that we can build on. So the minute we have is too small for us to finish up everything. I've just tried to explain what penetration testing is, but why? Why do we have to do all these problem? When in fact maybe nobody is trying to even attack us? Why should we be doing this trouble of going through this, putting security into our pipelines, doing all those things like that? Because pen testing can be very expensive. Can be expensive if you, in fact, if you have to do it in a professional way. It's a profession in itself, and there are people who are expert in it who collect a huge sum of money to conduct penetration testing on your application. So one is that if you haven't tested it, how do you know it's secured? You have to test it. You just build a house, you do all the security gates, everything, security camera and all of that. But then you just go to sleep and believe that because you have invested in all these security assets, because of that, you are secured. You are just deceiving yourself. You are going to have to do a test and see if somebody comes, how will the security camera help you? What if they take it out? What else? And all of those things. All those simulations has to be done before you can go to bed. Investment alone in security assets is not enough. So we have to do that to ensure that we are secured. And again, is compliance. Certain things in certain claims, you have to, there's some level of compliance you have to meet before they can, allow you to even speak within a specific domain. Like before they can accept your application to be used in a certain jurisdiction, there are some compliance level your applications must meet, and you have to submit your penetration testing report to show that you are compliant with certain regulations. Mr. Samuel shared a bit of it with us while he's presenting his application. So compliance is key to ensure that is done. The bad news is that, especially in this part of the world, is that majority of application gets shipped without any testing. There's no test. We are so much in a hurry that we just deploy, and we don't even know if the application is we have built, we have written it, and it's working, and like that. Even the best of application, 90% of applications in production today, if you have 90%, I say 9 out of 10 of application in production today, if you have an expert pen tester who has the time, they will break it down within 5 minutes. That is within 5 minutes. 90% of application in production today. So that is how bad things are. So the culture needs to change now that we are even more open to cyberspace. And we need to be, it's a responsibility to ensure that whatever we are shipping, to a reasonable extent, we are not saying that you can check all the boxes. Like I mentioned, any determined pen tester or hacker, any determined experienced hacker will get through any system. It might take time, but any determined hacker will get through any system. It's just a matter of time. So, but then you are going to make it as difficult, and ensuring that you keep checking, monitoring, and blocking holes as soon as they are opened and all of that. So without wasting time, I'll move on into penetration testing process. Penetration test is a profession. Is a profession, and if it's not done the right way, it becomes hacking. So it is a penetration test if it is done through the front door, like there is an engagement. Case Solutions engage you has a security expert to come and help them to test their system. So they invite you. In which case there's going to be an engagement letter. There's going to be an agreement, um, non-disclosure agreement. Whatever you have found, you're not going to expose it. You're only going to tell us, and all of those things like that. That has to take place. That is, if you are that's uh, through an engagement process. That could be a penetration testing process. It could also be that you work for First Bank. I know somebody in this call that works for First Bank. It could also be that you work for First Bank, and then you are after maybe you are a security expert there, and then after an application has been done, you are being paid. Your job is to test the that's vulnerability of that. You conduct a penetration test. That is a penetration test. You can also do an unsolicited, quote and unquote, unsolicited penetration testing, but you have to be careful because you can get yourself in jail if you don't do it properly, because it will mean that you are hacking, that you are attempting to hack that system, and then whatever this thing that you have within the whatever law that is applicable within that jurisdictions, you may be taken up. So there are some there are some uh, there are some organizations out there like Facebook and other big tech organizations. They have bounty on pen test. Bounty in the sense that if you can penetrate us and you can tell us, you have a certain amount that they give you. They give you, it's a huge amount of money that you. So if you try to break into their system, they give you that amount of money. But then when you have that vulnerability, you have two things to do with it. One is you have this thing in front of you. You say, hey, I can get through to this thing. I have two ways. Should I tell them, or should I exploit it? Should I exploit it, or should I tell them? So if you go through them, you tell them, and you tell them what they can do to block it, then it will be a pen test. If you exploit it without telling them, then you have hacked into their system. So in which case each of it has this thing. So we have pre-engagement interactions, intelligence gathering, scanning. So if it is a proper engagement that they have, you are a security expert like Mr. Amin, and they talk to you. You have talk of engagement. They give you all the letter. The second thing that Amin would do would be to do intelligence gathering about the application. The application being built. What is the so hello, please, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, I network happened. I had to quickly switch to the backup network. All right. So intelligent gathering follows after the engagement. Scanning is next. The intelligent gathering has to do with knowing the technology, knowing what assets is in place, and all of that. And the next thing would be scanning. So the next thing will be scanning. Please, can you hear me?
Yes,
All right.
Yes,
can
sir.
hear
Yeah,
you.
sorry about the glitch. The network happens. So after the intelligent gatherings about knowing what security, what are the assets in the um, to be tested. For instance, if it's a web application, I want to know which technology they use, where do they deploy, all those things like that. So you gather all this stuff. Who are the people? Who are the developers, and all of that, because people also are part of what you are trying to penetrate. How vulnerable those guys are is going to also affect the kind of application that they build. Also scanning. After that is now to scan. So there are different type of scanning that we're going to see. We have the automated scanning. So we have the manual scanning. The best practice is to conduct the two, both manual and automated scanning. And so to now see that will open up um, some of the vulnerabilities that is available, and then we then do threat modeling. After seeing the vulnerability, we then try to model a threat and attack those vulnerability and see what the level. So when you scan and it gives you certain things that maybe this thing is open, this port is open, this there is a lot of duplicated packages used here. You know, too many SQL statements, vulnerable SQL statements, and all of that. Then you want to model and attack each of those spots and see how it breaks the system down. The next thing would then be the vulnerability analysis to now analyze both of those or each of those vulnerabilities that we've found. So exploitation, I mentioned the other time, when you have threat modeling, you want to exploit this thing. So when you exploit it, you're actually having it attacked. So, but you don't want to do this in a production environment, because you are doing a penetration test does not mean that you bring down the application. So, you simulate an environment that is similar to the production and then do that there. So if things are done properly, just like Mr. Amin mentioned, and certain things are automated, some of those things will be done before production. So, but even when it's in production, you still want to have some tests. Some applications are built the wrong way, and they are there in the productions, and then that's when you want to test. Or you just sitting up there, you want to take up as a penetration tester, you want to take up. If you take up, I'm telling you now, if you take up some of the some government portals, all these portals we have up and down, you are going to see a lot of vulnerabilities. Well, I don't know if they want to reward you in Nigeria. If you want to reward you, it can come from an unexpected angle. So, but in a very civilized climate, you can, you know, get a vulnerability, and then you can walk up to them, and that can give you a very good job. Post exploitation, after exploitation, there has to be clean up, there has to be what we need to do and all of those things, and then there has to be a reporting. So this is a standard penetration test process, if it is penetration, because penetration testing is also hacking. It all depends on, like police or the army, they use gun, and the thief also use gun, but they use it in different so if police uses it, it's not a crime, but if the other guy uses it, it's a crime. So both, everything we are learning today is hacking, both hacking and also pen testing. But we are not saying it, we are not doing it in the bad light. So, moving on, these are the top 10 penetration testing. Today, a lot of tools out there. The top 10 are this one, the rated ones. One is Kali Linux. Kali. Kali Linux is an operating system exclusively built for security, and security experts use it, and hackers use it as well. So if hackers are going to hack your system, they mostly use Kali Linux, because it comes loaded with all most of these tools that you have here. All this Nmap, where it has some of them, a lot of them are pre-installed into the Kali, and then with that environment, you can do a whole lot. It was built for that. It was built for that. So Um, it's a huge resource if you want to do pen testing or you want to do you are a security expert as well. So Nmap is a network mapper. Like I mentioned, pen testing is not just about testing how weak an application is. It also goes to testing the network that the application sits on as well. So you can use Nmap, which is a network mapper, to try to map what is on the networks, try to see the domains, the DNS, and all of those things, open ports, and all of that. Check things out and see where you can come in through. So a thief, a professional thief, will not just wake up one day and come to your house. Hackers would first of all check the network, check the architecture to your house, how you hope, it's a whole lot of work that they will do to see when you leave your kitchen door open, how they can get in and all of that. So the same thing hacker would do. So pen testing too, you have to do that. Ensure that you check all the network, and Nmap can get us there. Wireshark is also a network tool to check what is on the network, the DNS and all of that as well. So Metasploit, Nikto, all these tools right here. Please look at them very well. Intruder, Nessus. So a lot of them are open source, and it means that they are available. So you can just check them up on the Git. They have GitHub repository, and they have their website. So you can just get them to install. Some of them are available only on Linux. Some of them are available for both Linux and Windows. I know a lot of people use Windows, so we can have that there. So, but one application that we're going to be exploring today is BobSuit. A BobSuit is has two what's it called, versions. There's community versions and there's enterprise version. BobSuit has a whole lot, most of these things together, and is a very huge tool. And of course, the enterprise version is also not as expensive as its level, the other tools that are at its level. So we are going to be exploring BobSuit as a pen testing tool today, and of course with Kali Linux as well. So WTAF, Nessus, and the John the Ripper. So John the Ripper is used a lot to rip things apart. So that's what called John the Ripper. So you can use it to check whether a network or a application. So, and of course, is also a man in the middle. So all of these tools, these are top tools that are used by hackers and of course by security professionals to hack or to do conduct hacking simulation, which is what we call it pen testing. Now I'm going to talk about a bit at the surface some vulnerabilities, some security vulnerabilities. Not all of them are here, but based on the Open Worldwide Application Security Project, OWASP, top 10. So OWASP is dedicated to ensuring that the web is secured. So from time to time, they document what is trending now, the vulnerability that is trending now around web space. So you always have OWASP Step 10 is a go-to place to check for the latest vulnerabilities. And of course, we are going to be simulation that we're going to be using today. Multi-layer is also something that is given to us by OWASP. For security experts use it to hone their skills in penetration testing, and of course hackers also use it to hone their skills. Hacker doesn't wake up one day and becomes a hacker. He goes through training, and so OWASP gives us a multi-die application that has a lot of vulnerability that we can use that to practice and exploit. You don't want to use a production application and say you want to use it to test, even if it's your own application. So you don't want to use that to test to practice. But if you're going to do a pen test, you do a pen test within a controlled environment, so that you are not breaking your house while you're trying to test it, right? So you ensure that is done. So injection is been there for time immemorial. SQL injection, file inclusion injection, which could be remote file inclusion. Injection is where somebody is putting something that is not originally there. So people write from our time, and when I say our time, I mean from 2000 to 2013. Every 9 out of 10 developers that you see that time write PHP from 2000 to 2013. Things change rapidly from 2013 to this moment where you can ask people, they don't even know what PHP is. So in people at that time sees that, because the majority of people know about that technology, people say that is weak and all of those things, and it's because a lot of people write it. And when you have a lot of people writing a particular technology, people will write it the way they like. So you have careless developers and you have careful developers. So careless developer will write careless applications and deploy, and people will use that and put that on the technology that the person is using. So mostly that time, or even up to now, you see a lot of SQL injections possible. People can break into applications through authentication without having to log in. People write very weak SQL statements, so we can do injection. And then file inclusion too. The way PHP was written at a point was, you can also include a page themselves. You can say page equals to, and then you include a page like that, which makes it possible that somebody else can also include that page that is not originally in your page and make it executable on your server. So I will try to be as brief because I have little time as possible. Broken access control, different access control, even JWT that we think is secured. We will go to OWASP top 10. I'm going to share the this thing later on, or you can even Google it. You'll see JWT vulnerabilities and all of that. Security misconfiguration. People misconfigure web assets, maybe server misconfiguration, especially if you're working with Apache server. Well, let's say you're using Apache server NGS or something like that, and you are trying to configure it for a PHP applications, and you're configuring there's a file we call php.ini, and then you configure it such that maybe you have certain implementations that requires certain files to be executed. You now open it up like that. Maybe you forget to close it, or you intentionally leave it there because your implementation requires it. This is a very juicy juicy spot for developers to come in and mess up your hackers to come in and mess up your application. We're going to see a lot of them later on. Core citing scripting is to use an XSS into your applications and then inject JavaScript, mostly JavaScript. Of course, there are other scripting that we can inject into application. In this insecure deserialization, so when we are serializing or deserializing, so most of the times we are careless. When we are careless about it, we will get to expose very sensitive information, which is another thing that you have here. Sensitive information exposure. We'll talk about that one as well. Broken authentication, insufficient logging and monitoring, XML, external entities, using components with known vulnerability is also there. So one thing that we need to then be aware of is that when we say using component with known vulnerability, how do I know components that have known vulnerability? Now, when I write Node application or write a JavaScript application or write a Java application, how do I know the vulnerabilities that are available for this type of technology? Is there a place where I can get that? Yes, the answer is yes. Not only OWASP, but you have National Vulnerability Database, NVD. I'm going to share the database later on. We can use that to check all vulnerabilities that are available for each technology. All technologies have vulnerability. So if you are a pen tester, the first thing, and somebody tells you about the technology they're using, is first thing you want to go check is to see the latest, is always the latest vulnerability within that domain, within that network, within that technology. So you see all of them, and all of them you want to try and see if this guy had not exposed in the. That's the first place to start. But of course, one technology has more vulnerability than the other. But all technology, except it hasn't been exploited, has certain vulnerability that can we can use as a base to come in, and then when we come in through that, we begin to open things up. Um, then I said that we are going to look at BobSuit. BobSuit is one of the penetration testing tool or hacking tools, depending on how you call it. It's very robust. It supports both automated pen testing and manual pen testing. For some of us, the old guys, we are still young, but we call ourselves the old guy because we've been in this system for a while. Most of us prefer to still do things manually. In fact, when Mr. Amin was talking about, DevOps, not because some of us do not, so some of us still do a lot of manual deployment, We can't try it when you're on production though, but we still do a lot of manual deployment. From this thing, manually merging things to productions, manually pulling things on production and all of that. That has to change. It's when we are preaching to ourselves as well. First of all, you need to automate your DevOps before you can even talk about putting security into that automation. So BobSuit supports all of that, and then I'm going to open up my system now, and we'll talk about it. Now, I think during a practical, I'm going to explain this diagram right here. This is BobSuit in the middle. This is a web application to the left, and this is the web server to the right. So BobSuit actually stays in between. If you use it as a proxy server, so whatever request that is coming from the front end, BobSuit, it goes through BobSuit before it goes to your server. When it's coming back from the server as well, it goes through the BobSuit before it goes to the front end. What that means is that I can do whatever with the data that is coming from the front end before we forward it to the server. And when it's coming from the server, I can do whatever I like with the data before I forward to the front end. So I have all the power. It's not only BobSuit, but any pen tools that we use as a proxy server can works this way. So I'm going to quickly switch down and have a quick demonstration of a pen test. This one is just to give us at least a bit of information about pen testing, and then so let me move on here and stop presenting here and switch the presentation here. So I'm going to have to present my entire screen right here. Please let me know when you can see the screen. All right, thank you for confirming that you can see my screen. Now, so the first thing I'm going to show up is going to my browser. I want to show this guy right here. Please let me know if you can see this. This is Multilidai. Multilidai is what we are going to be using today, and it's also available to you. I'm going to share. Let me share the link on the chat. You can use that to practice. It's an intentionally vulnerable system. It was built and it was made available by Open World Wide Application Security Project for us to use, for security experts to use it to hone their skills, and of course it's the same thing that hackers use to learn. But you can pick up any other vulnerable system to learn. So let me see if I can drop that on the charts right there. That's the first thing I'm gonna do. Oh, I already pressed it. Okay, so that guy is what I'm demonstrating today. Is that guy? I have it hosted already on a server, and we are going to be using that. So best practice is for you to use it in a control environment, because mind you, when you have a vulnerable application in a shared environment, somebody comes in through that vulnerable application, they can get to other application that you feel they are secured. So you don't want to put this in a production environment that has other applications and you are testing off there. So you have to be careful when they come in. All your thief needs is, when imagine you stayed in an apartment that your neighbor is careless and you are very careful, and the guy opens the door. The moment a thief get access to his room, you are not safe again. So they get to you as well, however careful you are. So be careful how you use this guy. He's very vulnerable. uh, Now that application is deployed right here. You see this guy, we call it playground.ksolutions.com. So if you try to access this guy right here, playground.ksolutions.com, you will not be able to. If you click on that guy, you will meet this guy right here. You will see this by default multi-die 2 only allow access from a non-routable network, so you will not be able to see the content. That is because we control on the server which IP address we allow to access the content. So I'm going to open it up to myself so that I can have access. So I can also allow certain individuals to also have access. So let's say that I want to add this network into the allow this thing. So what I'm going to do is to check for my public IP and then put that into the allowable IP addresses that can have access to that server. So this is a simple security check. You want to block certain access. So this is my public IP address now. So I'm going to have that copied, and then I'm going to have that add into the allowed from. This is because the reason I'm doing this is because this is vulnerable and I can't afford, this application is vulnerable and I have deployed on a server and I can't afford everybody on the World Wide Web to have access to it. So that's why I have to just limit where I'm accepting the request from. So the moment we do this, and then I have this guy refreshed, the page now loads because it now allows this particular IP address to have access to that server. So if you look at this, don't mind that it looks very awkward. So it's for security reasons. It's for security what's it called purpose. So they don't care about the designs. What they are telling us here is just some of the standards that you have. So you can see OWASP 2017, which is the latest. You can see the AI SQL injections, A1 rather, SQL injections, that all the SQL injections are available, 2013 and all of those things like that. We'll come back to this in a bit, in the spirit of managing time, because we don't have all the time in this world. And the next thing I want to show us before we go into Bob's properly is this guy here, mvd.nsi.gov. This is in the US. This body, they keep vulnerability of all latest vulnerabilities of all technology, of all vendors. So some of us, we believe that Apple is not vulnerable, Apple devices are not vulnerable. While that is true to a reasonable extent, all devices are vulnerable. All you need to know is just information about it, and the more people use it, the more people get to know about the vulnerability. And vulnerability can come from the man, people who use it carelessly. It may not be from the device itself, but from people who use the device carelessly. So if you go to that guy, that's MVD, that's National Vulnerability Database, you can have all the vulnerability. So if I'm a pen tester and I want to, you can see the latest this thing here. If I want to search, I want to conduct a vulnerability about an application, the first thing I want to know is The stack, the stack they use, the whether it's JavaScript, whether it's PHP, it's Java, it's C Sharp, whatever, which database, which operating system, all those things. I'm going to have them noted down, and I'm going to come here and search the vulnerability, the latest vulnerability about those technology. You know, so you can have that guy there. So if I search for vulnerability CVE, you can explore this database at your leisure. You make sure you do advanced, put a key distance, and then come here in the product, put whatever you want to search for, whether it's Java, whether it's JavaScript, whatever it is. Put it right there. If it is vendor, maybe it's Microsoft, maybe Apple, Oracle, whatever it is, you can put the vendor there, and then you're going to see um, the latest things that are vulnerable to. Everyone is vulnerable, I can tell you that. But the thing is how quickly people block their vulnerabilities. That's why we have to keep our softwares, our applications up to date, because they have people who are they employed who are checking this, what people have found out about our system, and quickly they try to patch it. They have security patches release and all of that. So if you don't update your software, you don't update your patches, then you are open to what is already known, and people can get to you through that. So that's why people they always tell you that software's applications has to be up to date. But in this part of the world, that most of us don't buy software, we use crack software. It becomes difficult to go and to go and update. So that's one place you also want to start, knowing the vulnerability that is available about a particular technology. So I haven't done that. The next thing you want to use is pick your tool. So I have a Kali Linux right here. This Kali Linux is installed on a VM, a virtual machine, so it's very easy. All you need to do is get a Kali Linux ISO. You can download it online, or yeah, or have it go to a software vendors wherever you are, and you get the Kali Linux, and then put it on. If you want to run it on as a guest operating system, like right here, I have a window, and then I'm running as a guest operating system on a virtual machine. So I have right here. So Kali is a huge tool for security. It's a huge tool. Um, it has everything follow com. Everything that you can use to cause trouble has a follow com, and then you can install more. So you don't want to miss. You don't want to. In addition to any other tool that you have, Kali is a tool that you want to keep very close to your desk, close to your close to your bed rather. So this is I already have my Kali running, and I'm going to the first thing I'm going to do while running this is to first, because what I want to concentrate on, there's 1001 thing that we can do here, but within this space I have to manage it properly. What I want to concentrate on is just using a tool called Bob Suits um, to conduct penetration testing and see some how vulnerabilities are visualized from an attacker perspective. So one thing that we also should know is that the fact that I even know how a thief thinks is enough for me to know how I can protect certain things, not everything, but certain things. I know what is available to the thief. I can see thief can they have access to doing this, doing that, doing this, doing that. Then I will be more careful in the way I handle my stuff. So I think in this session we should be able to manage it within the time frame that we've got. So the first thing you want to do before you start up your bomb suit is to configure your browser to use your bomb suit. So I mentioned that there are two versions of bomb suits. There is community version and there is enterprise version. For the enterprise version, you can get a trial version and test things out. It's very huge. For community versions, you don't have to pay, and you can use that. It's free of charge. So you can download that. It supports Windows and Linux and all of that. But it comes by default with this box. So if I'm starting something like this, I will just say Bob Suits. If I want to start Bob Suits applications, I'll just hit that, and then that guy will start a Bob Suits for me uh, on Kali. On Windows, you know how you start your application normally, it will start. But like I mentioned, there are things you need to get in place to get Bob Suits works the way you want, which is configuring Bob Suits as a proxy server. That's the first thing you want to do. So I'm going to run us through how we can do that on a Safari and on a Firefox, and of course on a Chrome as well. So while on Kali, or let me start from Windows, since majority of us are using Windows and majority of us developers like using Chrome. So I'm on Windows. The first thing I want to do, you see all these website I'm browsing, they are going through now. They are going through now. All these websites are going through now. The moment I configure my guy, they will have to go through that guy before they go through. So I'm going to configure the Bob Suit as a proxy server. I'm just going to go to my options here for Chrome, the triple dot right there, and then I would go to settings. Now, so the moment I get to settings, this is Chrome's configurations, and I will go to system. Now, so if you have a VPN already set, because this guy works like a VPN, you actually making a VPN yourself. If you have a VPN, you are going to see a VPN right here. So you want to disable that VPN itself. So, and this will also tell you, being a security expert now, that whatever you are doing is going through a particular VPN. So when you use a VPN, actually what happens is that all your requests passes through that VPN. So from now forward, if you haven't been doing that, you want to you ensure that whichever VPN you are using is a trusted VPN, because they have access to all the credit card information that you're putting into that you're browsing and you're putting in that VPN have access to it. So if it's a malicious um, provider, they can use that credit card that you're putting in, in the way that they want, or any other security stuff that you do. They can use it in the way that they want. So know that. So what we are configuring now is a proxy server. So I'm going to have open your computer proxy settings. I'm going to have that open up. So you can see right here that I have this guy configured to. So you have proxy. So use a proxy server. You ensure that you use a proxy server. Please if you are configuring it, at the end of the day, you have to ensure that you turn it off, or you remove it totally. You remove this, because all your websites will not work. Every other browser, all these things you are browsing, they won't work except they pass through these guys. And if this server is not rolling, you just see that all websites are not working. So if you forgot and you leave it on, so I'm going to Bob Suit he runs on port 8080 on the local host. So when it start running, it runs on this. So I'm going to have this guy work. This is a local host. Look back IP address 127.0.0.1, and then it works on port 8080. So I have that there, 8080, and then I'm going to have to save that. So the moment I save that, I'm done save and configuring my proxy server, my Bob Suit as my proxy server. The next thing I want to do is to start my Bob Suit. So I have the professional version installed on my Windows, while on Kali I'm using the community version right there. So I'm going to start this guy up, the Bob Suit up. So when it starts, it's asking, you can name the projects, or you can load the project from an existing project that you're already working on and share with you and all of that. But I'm just going to use a temporary project in memory, and this project will get discarded at the end of the day. So I'm going to start that guy up. So Bob Suit is ready. This is that monster. Bob Suit is a monster. So everything you're working on, you are going to see them on the dashboard. You have a scanning going on, you'll see them on the dashboard, um, right here. Please let me know if you can still hear me and you can see my screen. So one thing you notice is that I got disconnected from the. So let me come from here. Uh, so one thing you notice is that I got disconnected from the this thing, because my request now goes through the Bob Suits. So let me join from here. So let me join from here. Please let me know when you can see my screen. Yeah. So what happened?
We can see your screen.
Thank you, sir. So what happened is that when I started, when I fired up my Bob Suit, the the um the Google Meet stopped working. The Google Meet stopped working, so I got logged out. And the implication of that is that the request has been hijacked by the Bob Suit. So this guy that was working before, if I refresh it now, it goes through the Bob Suit, so you can see it's no longer working. This guy here is no longer working. It means that the request has been hijacked by Bob Suits. Is now in Bob Suits. We have to go and look for it in the Bob Suits, and then we'll decide if you want to pass it on to the server. So all requests we have to go through Bob Suits, like that. So the guy is still refreshing, and you see now. So if you open up your Bob Suits, um, what I had to do was to use another browser. So I joined the meeting with another browser that is not going through the proxy server. So the Chrome is using the proxy server. So everything, uh, all hosts that I try to access on this thing goes through this guy. So let me do a quick overview of what we've got on the Bob Suits. The dashboard shows us everything that we have going on. If we have a scanning going on, a vulnerability scanning going on, and all of that, we are going to have that here. And so that there. Then target is any target that we are working on right now. We are going to see it. Maybe I'm working on a particular target or assets you are currently working on, a particular website, facebook.com, google.com. This is what I'm testing right now. That's your target. proxy is what is currently now being trapped. Any site that you try to visit, it goes through this proxy first. Then when it comes through this proxy, you can see, you can decide to do whatever you want to do with that request before you forward it to the server that is going. So you can change the data, you can do whatever before you forward it to its final destination. That is when it now go through. The same thing when it's coming back as well. We are going to come back to proxy. Intruder is an attack. You can use intruder to simulate an attack of intrusion, and then you can then pick the type of attack. We have sniper, we have ram jam, and stuff like that. You are going to pick which type of attack, and you use that to attack. So we use intruder to do attack. Repeater, we use repeater to repeat a request, to replay a request. So a request happened, we want to see, it's going to replay it slowly how that request happened. So we can use that repeater to do that. We can also use the simulate response, how that response happened. So we can use repeater to do that. Collaborators, we can have more people join us, people with like mind, hackers or penetration testers. Sequencers, we can have this to arrange things that we have in a particular order. So it's also an attacking tool, pretty much like this thing too. Decoder is also in line with intruder, but decoder is used to, you have keys, encryption and all of that, so you want to decode it. You intercept a particular key, so the decoder can decode it and tells us what it knows about that. And comparer, we can use that to compare certain things. And logger logs your attack. When you have an attack, you can log everything that is happening on that server. You have logger logs it for you, and then all the requests going on, coming back, and all of that, you can have that logged. And then you have organizers to, you can use that to organize things how you want to work. Extensions, you can even use it to make bump suits a bit more powerful. And learn, this is a place, whatever we are doing here is just give you tips of the iceberg. You're going to have to learn it yourself. So you have learn to explore what is possible and all of that. And I will encourage you to make this your friend. And of course, you can go to their website and then explore a lot more. I have limited time, but I will still try to do. We promised we were going to release us by 12:30, but here we are. We haven't even done much here. So the first thing I'm going to do is let's explore this proxy. What are we seeing here? And I said that I was going to explain how BobSuit works in that slide. When we get here, I'm going to explain it. So it's pretty much in between your request and your server, between your client and the server. This BobSuit now stays in between. Anything that comes from the front end, or request that is coming from the front end, it will be intercepted. And you can look through it, take your time to look through it from morning till night before you allow it to go through the server. So you do your analysis, look at the request, stuff like that, modify things, and then you can pass it on to the server, and then it goes to the server. And then when it's coming back from the server too, you can intercept it before it comes to your client. So let's see how that works. So here you have two. In the proxy environment, you have intercept, you have HTTP histories. These are what the site has browsed. WebSocket history, match and replace, and proxy settings. Now, in the proxy settings, you can set how you want to intercept what you are intercepting. That's the proxy option if you are using a community version. It has what's it called? We call it proxy option in that place. So here you can set your rules, what you want to intercept. If you want to intercept the response, if you want to intercept the request, if there's certain things you are looking out for in the request, maybe it should be only SHR, maybe it should only be HTML, maybe it should only be styles, or whatever you want to intercept. You can set that here. So you have this is of course the proxy server that is running. You can say request interception rule. So this guy is intercepting requests, and maybe you say and or HTTP method, you can say this guy here. So this guy is going to intercept all requests, all the requests passing through. And then you have response interception too. So when the server is responding with certain requests, content type matches text. But if you want to say or, and maybe or request was modified, or so any of these you can add and URL. So this means that when server responds with anything, I'm going to have it intercepted before it get displayed on the web. You know, WebSocket interception and all of that. Some of us might be asking, what's the meaning of this interception? And then when you intercept, what happens? This is huge. Interception is huge, especially when the developer of that application is inexperienced. Inexperienced, I mean that imagine you are building an e-commerce. They build e-commerce, and then they say people are buying products, and then they are sending. They said that before what they are sending to the backend is how much I have paid, and they said I paid 20 naira. So before I pass it to the server, I know that's how much I'm supposed to pay. I'm supposed to pay maybe 100 naira, but I intentionally pay only 1 naira. But then when I'm passing the request to the server, I intercept the request. Look at it right here. I intercept the requests. Let me have that guy saved. I intercept the request. If you look at it right here, look at the intercept. I intercept the request. When I intercept the request, look at the request here. I can modify the data of that request before sending to the server, and then I can change whatever I've done, whatever money in there, change it to 100 naira, and then maybe that guy just trusts that I've paid 100 naira, and then he just processes it. And that's why we say that when you're engaging developers, you want to be sure that the developer knows what they're doing. Because any developer that uses the payment gateway, you do not trust whatever is coming from the front end. You have to go to the payment gateway and ask that payment gateway, how much did the guy actually pay? Is that amount that you want to trust? Whatever amount that the front end say the person has paid is not what you want to trust. Because this guy here, I have access, I can I can intercept and change it to whatever. So that, and then also when it's coming from the back end, the response is coming, let's say it's a subscription logic, and the guy, what the front end is looking out for is maybe the back end is sending to the front end and he's saying his subscription is cost to true. Maybe when you see his subscription is cost to true, it means that the person is subscribed, and then you can allow the person to do certain things. So when I intercept the response, I can change it and modify it to whether it's telling me that the guy has not subscribed and it says subscription equals to false. I'm just giving an example, and I change whatever is false to true before it goes to the front end. Then when it goes to the front end, the guy would trust it as if that is what is coming from the back end, and then I would enjoy whatever it is that any person that is a subscribe will enjoy. Beyond that, you know, keys, you know, a lot of things you can deduce from intercepting what is coming from front end and back end. So that's why how you can, you know, go about some of these vulnerabilities, ensuring that you have proper DTO in place, you don't expose things unnecessarily. Certain things are kept strictly on the server. Certain things, what is exposed is certain things, minimal stuff, and validations is always on the server. All validations, whether the guy, whatever is doing, whatever, we have to check if that guy can do that thing on the server, not on the client, on the server, before he is able to have access to all of that. So we can, so now whatever I've intercepted, I do whatever with it, and then I can then forward it. So when I forward it now, that guy now goes through, he goes to the server. The same thing when it's coming back from the server, I can intercept and forward it to the front end. So you can see the HTTP proxy history. So, and then when you see the target now, on the target you see this guy and forwarded. Let me forward this guy here. In the intercepts, I forward it, and then I can see it on the target. I can see it on the target now. These targets are the target I'm working with. So you can see from here, I can see the file structure of the application, even though I'm not on the server. But this guy doesn't give me the whole picture. So the moment you try to go browse the website, you can see it's now going through. The moment you go try to browse any place you try to browse, it's going to get that map and try to document that in that process. Anywhere you try to browse is try to document, your this guy will catch that process, and any file within that path, it will recommend it will catch it, and then people can go through. Now, I mentioned that PHP was tagged as a very vulnerable um, sorry PHP was tagged as a very vulnerable technology. One, because it was very common at the time. Two, because PHP application, it stays like that on the server, the same way you have written it. Whatever you have written is on the server that way. Like index.php is on the server, all the codes are there that way. So if anybody have access to that guy, they have access to whatever you have written. Is one of the vulnerability. Most of the technology that we have right now, especially on the front end, do not have such, because they are compiled like a like a React or Angular, whatever is, you build them and they get compiled into certain this thing before. But of course, that compilation can also be unpacked. But of course, that's the process. But not unlike this one. But that vulnerability that we used to talk about PHP that time, we now have it exclusively also with a Node application. When you deploy a Node JS server, the code stays as it is on your laptop the same way on the server. So if anybody have access, look at it. If I do this, right click, and I say engagement tool, where's that guy? Engagement tool, and I can say discover content. So when I say engagement to discover content, this guy is going to discover everything on that server. He's going to discover it for me. Everything, all the files, all the code that we have written, is going to discover it for me, and I can then remotely analyze that and know everything you have written, how you have handled your authentications, how you have handled that. And then if you are weak enough to allow file inclusions, I can then go ahead and break everything that you have written. So you can see this guy, discover content. If you write discover content, the guy is going to start, and it's going to, you see session is not running. If you say session should start, session you will start, and then it will start running. But I don't have time for this. I will just stop that. But that's discover content, discovers content. Again, what another thing you may want to quickly do is that I can send this guy here to intruder. So first off, you have scope. In this scope that you've got right here, you may want to limit the scopes to only the your targets, so you can filter down by the scope. But what I want to do quickly is that in this target right here, I can pick a request and send it to my intruder to attack. So you can see I can send it to intruder, send it to repeater, send it to sequencer, stuff like that. So if I send it to intruder, for instance, you can see the intruder blinking. What intruder is ready to attack, but what the next thing is just asking me for is that what kind of attack do I want to do? Is it a sniper attack? Is it a battering ram attack? All this kind of attack, you can see, you can read more about them. Sniper attack, stands for what it stands for. Sniper, any slightest opportunity, strike. If you see any vulnerability anywhere, any slightest opportunity, just exploit. So I would use that guy, and then I can also, this is the request, and I have this is a get request. I have access to injecting anything into that request. So let's say I want to inject if I inject, yeah, I think people have gone. Let me just, I can modify that request, and I put something here. Let me add something in that request. I can have attack, and that is how that guy is going to, and then I can add the this thing. This is only available on the this thing, so I can have directory shots, how that guy, the payload that of targets. Once I have all of that, I can start the attack. So the moment I start the attack, that request I make sure is the base request. So it's going to do that. It starts that attack and it's going to give me a report of um, whatever has been done and whatever has been exploited, and like that. You can see it right here is running. So while it's running, I'm just going to minimize that and show us a bit more of stuff. Now that I just did now is called manual attack. You know, you did manual scanning, sending each individual, inspecting individual requests, inspecting and all of that. But if you don't have time, you want to do an automated, just automated scanning, you can right click on that guy. You have engagement tool, or before you engage, you can have this passive scan or active scan. This guy would scan that target for all vulnerability possible, and then it will give you the reports that you can you can work on. So it's 12:40. That's 10 minutes behind the time that we promised we're going to stop this, and we still have two more activities to cover. So I'm going to pause here and entertain questions before we move on. I'm going to share the slides and going to share a couple of resources with us after the session as well. I hope I wasn't too fast, and I hope we were able to catch something, even if it's just a little. Thank you. So with that, I would entertain questions. So please use the quick Q&A or chat session to ask your questions. Let's make it brief. We are already 10 minutes or 10 minutes behind our closing time. Questions, please. So, do we hold training for penetration testing? Not for now, but it's something that we are considering. We would let us know. Do you hold training for pen tests? We do it for on corporate basis. On corporate basis, like corporate trainings, we have like in our corporate training 2 hour, 2 weeks, 1 week, stuff like that. We do that based on calendar. But like we have an ongoing coming to the office. We are not doing that for now. But if we have more people, it's something that we can consider. Of course, we will always let the community know about it. Yeah, can the code in the server be modified with the this tool? Yes. The code on the server can be modified, and this is but the way it will be is that if the server is weak enough to it has a vulnerability called file inclusion. File inclusion vulnerability means that you can, and you see a lot of WordPress site has that vulnerability, and because WordPress is also a PHP application, um, so you allow you to include a local file into a remote server. So I can write um, certain implementations and have it executable and include it on the file path of that distance. So let me share my screen so I think I can show that sample on my screen, so you'll see what I'm talking about, especially for that multi-die website, which is a weak implementation. So if you see this guy here, So let me do it on this guy, because that police is there and nothing goes through except it passes through it. So let me come here. Now you see here, if you want to see all type of vulnerability type, if you come to this OWASP 2017, you can see SQL injection, you can see all the types that you have here. So but if you go to this guy, broken where is that guy, broken access control. Yeah, if you go to broken access control, you will see this guy, insecure direct object reference. So this insecure direct object reference, you can see sample of local file inclusion LFI or remote file inclusion. So if I exploit this one now, you can see, look at the look at the URL. The URL is saying index.php pay equals to arbitrary page inclusion.php. So how this content is getting loaded is that there's a page called this arbitrary file.php and is loading it. Okay, this guy is loading this page. What if I put another web page that is not even related to this guy? Let me see. Let me go to somewhere else. Let me go to MVD. Let me do MVD. Let me use that MVD, or just any website at all. So this guy notices that there's something on my network and he's trying to, so don't worry, I'll use another. Let me use this guy. So what I'm trying to demonstrate is that this thing here, if you pass in any URL, http/something/something from another website, is going to be loaded here. Then it can tell you more. It can tell you more about this server. Page equals to go back. Let's say go back. Let me see what is inside that place. Is empty or is loading? So this guy here is telling me what is on the server, the directory on the server, like that. So I can use that to load content that I'm not supposed to see that is on that server, or I can load my own content into it, especially when it allows me to do a file inclusion and it allows me to execute. So I can put an exec script, execute, and that will go into their database, and any other person that is what's it called, running that website, that will run from their database. So I don't know if that comes through, but my pages are not loading. I messed up I wanted to demonstrate some things. So let's move on. Which other question? For an application built with old runtime and packages, what are the options of solving the vulnerability, especially for production application? Fantastic question. For applications that are built with old runtime and deprecated packages, the simple thing is to ensure that the packages are up to date. We need to ensure that the packages are up to date. Duplicate packages, there's a reason they are duplicated, so we have to ensure that the packages are and then if the technology is no longer strong enough to accommodate modern trends, it's time to change technology. Most of the website built in the earlier 2000, they were built with PHP, including facebook.com. So most of them change over time. You still see on facebook.com, you still see some implementations about that are PHP. If you, especially if you checking their developer end, this thing like that. Some of them they still keep as PHP, but certain implementation they have moved on, using their own React as front end, and then they have specific this thing. They may still use PHP as back end. I won't explore what they are using, but they started using PHP bare the same way everybody. So the same way most of the application then, and majority of them have migrated into something that is a bit more secured. Maybe still using the same PHP, but ensuring that they use frameworks. When you use frameworks, it's at least covers, helps you to block some security loopholes. It can still be misused and all of that. So we need to ensure that we're up to date. Just take out packages that are no longer supported and use the supported one. Can the community version also do all of this? So community version has the limitations. Community version cannot do an active scan. Active scan is a very huge thing. It cannot do passive scan, but it can do a lot that is already a lot for you. And most of these things that it does is manual. So hold an experienced pen tester use manual process, because without manual, there are certain things that you are not even paying attention to that you would see. But it takes a lot of time checking one request from the other, checking one response from the other, and all of that. But automated, everything was just checked and all of that. But you can, even in automated, you can miss certain things because there's too much reports that is giving you. But it will give you an high level reports, issues found, their levels, severity levels, and all of that. You can see, so one is running, 4 active scanning is running, and then when it's done, it's going to give us that. So just trying to see, how do you ensure legal compliance when performing penetration testing, especially across different jurisdictions? So you're going to have a lawyer. Developers usually have lawyers. Developers have lawyer. You need to have a lawyer, and then you are going to have to ensure that everything is documented, and ensuring that you don't, whatever you have seen, you are not exposing it. There's an NDA that you would have to sign, and you know that your lawyer understands whatever is going on, and then like that. So you have to check the laws in that jurisdiction and see what you need to comply with before you start anything. So like in Nigeria, you have to look at the data protection law. You have to check whatever compliance that SEC requires of you before you can do a pen test, because you can easily be called a thief afterwards. Do you okay? Can the code in the server be modified? Yes, I said it can be, especially when you see, if you are using um an Apache server and it's PHP. I think I've explained that before, but it's even easier when they use something like this. Let me simulate something with XAMPP. I will just quickly do something with XAMPP and you'll see what I'm talking about. So if you, this is XAMPP environment, which has, so let me see, XAMPP, and then you have the Apache configuration, and you have the config, or let me use the PHP configuration. Yeah, PHP, and then there's this guy called PHP-ini, which is this guy here, PHP configuration file. This guy here is the guy that controls how your server works. So there's this guy that is called open. So anybody that is going to configure your server, the person must know what they are doing. So you can see all this open base URLs, stuff like that here. Makes your website accessible through from the proxy, even from the web. And then again, the access, when you have an asset on the web, example is, let's say you have a file on the server. I'm not going to open this other tab because it exposes other files that are on the server, so I'm not going to open that tab that is next to this guy, but I will just try to explain without that. So is that when you are on a server, each file has permission that is guiding that file. We have read, write, and execute. Read, write, and execute. So if the file has a permission that is called execute, so we have 750, 755, all those guys like that. So if the file has execute permission, it means that it can be executed. And that is a very dangerous thing. So developers, sometimes they do something that is convenient for them at that time, and during that time maybe they just need to quickly execute one code, integrate one API, and then the best ways they wanted to do is just try to execute it through the client and all of that, and they just change the permission of that guy to execute. That is an entry point for me. And good enough, my pen tester is going to tell me that I have a file that has this permission, then I can go through that guy. The moment I can go through that guy, I can write any code I want, put it in that guy, hijack the old server, take everybody out. The moment I get that, people say Linux is secured. Linux is secured. You know, from the web, depending on who is managing the server, I can get access to all the password on a particular Linux server, especially from this kind of OWASP vulnerability that tells us that, you know, you have this file inclusion. From that, I can do this and get to the file system. Do that, get to the file system. When I'm in the file system, I'm outside the Apache or the engineers now. I'm now in the VR or ETC environment where I can get access to the password, copy everything on that password, everybody, all the password on the system, and then I take over the server. So yeah, that is that. So I'm just going to, I think that's the questions that we have. Okay, I think those are the questions that we have. So thank you everyone. We're still going to continue and finish up. We have only 4 minutes left. I don't know how we can manage this. So thank you everyone. The presenter is also on social media. So if you have not, you can see this is what let me stop presenting. So let me present from here. So this is the BOPSU that we just explained. We've taken the Q&A. Oh, which one am I presenting? I think this guy. So we're taking the Q&A, and so you can do well to follow me personally on social media, and please follow us K Solutions on our various social media handles. So